Okay, so now we're ready to work on our spaceship and start adding code to control the spaceship. First thing we want to do is make sure that the spaceship sprite is selected, and we can tell it's selected because it has a blue border around the sprite. For anything to work or have an action in Scratch, we need to make sure that we have an event that starts it. So to start the game in Scratch, we need to click the green flag. So this would be a good place for our spaceship. So under the event script, I'm going to choose the when flag clicked block and drag the block out onto my scripts area. Next thing we want to do is we want to have a look at our sprite here and change the size of it a little bit because it's way too big on our stage. As we're changing the look of it, we can find things that alter the look under the looks script panel. And down here we've got a block called set size to 100%. So let's drag that one out and we'll change it to something a bit smaller. So let's go 25%. To see what that looks like, if we double click on that block, you can see there it's changed the size of our ship to 25%, which is probably a lot better for this particular game. Next thing we want to do is set a starting position for our spaceship. So under the motion scripts, we can choose a block, go to X, Y. So X on our stage is moving left and right. So on the left hand side here we have negative 232, and if I move it over to the right we have positive number of 230. So number 0 would be right in the center of our screen. And the Y coordinate is horizontal, so the higher I go up on my stage, the higher the number, with 0 again being right in the center. Down the bottom here where my ship is now, it's at negative 147. In this case, we want the spaceship on the X coordinate to start at 0, so right in the middle of the screen, and let's move him down a bit to negative 147. We'll double click that code to see what that position looks like. The other thing we can do is click on the green flag at any time to test the code to see what's going on. So if I move this now over here, hit that green flag again, he's going to reset to that start position. So in our Space Invaders game, we need to create some variables. One, so that the star knows where the spaceship is, so each time we hit space it shoots from the front of the spaceship, and one to keep track of our score. So our variables are under the data scripts, and we need to click on make a variable. We get this new window up here, says new variable, and it's asking for the variable name. The first variable is going to be score, and we want this available for all sprites, so leave that as default and click OK. So you'll notice I now have some new blocks that I've created using my score variable, and I've also got a score on my screen on my stage up here. The next variable we need to make is one called Exposition. So click on make a variable, type in X position, and OK. The last one, make a variable, this one will be called Y position. And you can see these up here. If we wanted to hide some of these, we can come over here and actually click the little box to uncheck them. So we don't really need to know what the X and Y position are for this game, but it's handy to know the score so the player knows how they're going with the game. So the next thing we want to do is when we hit the green flag and start our game, we always want our score to reset to 0. So we're going to choose a set variable block. We'll drag this one out. So we're going to say set. Now we don't want to reset the Y position, we want to set the score variable. So we're going to choose score and leave it to 0. So every time we play the game, it's going to reset the score to 0. Okay, so now we're ready to add some code that's going to control the spaceship's movement. So this time we need to find a control script. So down here we have a if condition statement. So if something happens, then do something. So we're going to drag this one out, and we need to fill up this little diamond box here. So under sensing, we find everything that controls what our keys are doing, what our mouse might be doing, and also sensing different things like color or touching. So in this case, we want a key pressed block, so we're going to drag that out and move it over so we've got the white border so it snaps into that spot. We want to change this now to choose a key, so in this case we want ours to change when the left arrow is pressed. And now we need something, so when the left key is pressed, we want the spaceship to move. So if we choose the motion scripts, we're going to grab the block, change X by a number. So let's put that in there like that. So now if I want to test that, I can press the green flag and press my left key, but nothing happens. We need to put this code in another block. Under control, we want to find the forever block, so that while the game is running, so the whole time forever while the game is running, it's going to be sensing if the left arrow key is pressed. And we also need to add this block to under when the flag is clicked. So when the flag is clicked, it executes this code. So let's test that now. Press the green flag, press left on the arrow key, and you can see there my spaceship isn't actually going left, it's going to the right. So let's change this code here to a negative number. So in this case, -10. Reset the game, press left, and my spaceship's moving left. It's moving left at quite a speed though, so let's try something a little bit smaller. So let's go back to my code, change X by, and we'll change it by a smaller number. Let's go 6. Press the green flag to reset, and that's probably a bit better speed there. Now I need to add some more blocks for my other keys. Now I could just drag all those blocks out again, or this is pretty much the exact same code I want, so I'm going to right click on the if statement and I'm going to choose duplicate. Let's put that underneath, and you can see there I've got a duplicate copy. In this case I will change the sensing, so I want something done when the right arrow is pressed, and because it's moving right we don't need it in the negative, we want it in the positive, so we'll leave it as 6. Press the green flag to test that again, and you can see the spaceship is moving left and right as per my buttons. So we also need some code for our spaceship that ends the game if it hits one of the Space Invaders. So we're going to use another if statement and say if, we need a sensing one, touching block. So we're going to say if the spaceship is touching the starfish sprite, we'll go into events and we'll broadcast a message. And we'll change this broadcast message to something that's more unique and explains what it actually is for. So hit the little drop down arrow and choose new message. And the message we're going to send in this case is game over. And click OK. Well, we also want to add some code that when the spaceship hits the side of the screen, he bounces, so he doesn't go through the edge of the screen. So under the motion, we've got some code here that says if on edge, bounce. And we're going to drag that over under our if statement, but in the forever statement, so it's always checking if the spaceship is hitting the edge. And the last bit of code that we need for this now is to set our variables so that wherever our spaceship is, we can tell the star bullet where it is so it can start at the same position. So under our data tab, you're going to find the set block. We'll drag that down twice, so set Y position, and change the other one to set X position. And under the motion tab, we're going to find these variables that are built in. So we want to set the X position to the actual current X position of the spaceship, and we want to set the variable Y position to the actual Y position of our spaceship. Okay, so now we've got most of the code needed for our spaceship, and we're going to create a test. On page 8 of your workbook, you'll find our test for what we've done up to here. And the reason why we do these tests constantly throughout is we want to find any errors that are happening earlier on before we make too much code. If you imagine a game that's quite large, has lines and lines of code, if we come up with an error, there's a lot of things we need to sort through to find out what's causing that to happen. So it's very important that we're doing these very often to make sure things are working as we expected. And the purpose of this test is to make sure that the spaceship works as intended. Okay, so the expected result when left arrow is pressed is the spaceship moves left. When the right arrow is pressed, we expect the spaceship to move right. When it hits the left side of the screen, we added some code so it will bounce, and when it hits the right side of the screen, we also expect him to bounce off the right hand side of the screen. So let's test this out and see what our actual result is. So press the green flag to start. Use left. When he hits the left hand side, he's bouncing, that's perfect. Let's go to the right, and we can see here we've got an unexpected result where the spaceship actually turns upside down. So in our little test chart, we can fill in those results. So I've gone ahead and entered the actual result there. So the spaceship moved left, it moved right, it bounced off the edge, but for our bottom one, it bounced but it turned upside down. So for the outcome and actions required, we need to say what we're going to do to fix the problem. So for the first 3, there was no actual action required, so we can write down none required. But for the last one, we need to think about what we can do to fix it. So in this case, I'm going to add some code to make sure the spaceship is facing up. So the code we want to add to our spaceship is underneath the motion and point in direction. So if we add that code under the forever block, it's going to make sure that forever while we're running the game, the spaceship is always going to point in direction 90. So let's go ahead and test that again, see if that works. So it works on my left hand side. Let's go to the right, and it's working exactly as we intended.